I want to talk to you today about some things that I've been doing for the last couple months to really love cooking dishes for my family again. I have always loved to cook, right? But like anything else in life, something that you have to do over and over and over, it can kind of become a chore. And so what I've been doing recently is just making meal and menu plans based off of recipes that I am either really excited to cook, really excited to eat, or really excited for my family to try. And in this process, I have also been trying to really use up a lot of what is in my fridge, freezer, and pantry, not just from a budget standpoint, but from also a food waste standpoint, and just trying to be more creative with what I have and not spend so much time and money on grocery shopping. Something that I think we're all challenged with when cooking for a family is making something for dinner every night that most everyone is going to like. And depending on your kids and your partner and who you have living in your house, that can definitely be a huge challenge. And so I really try to make recipes that I know that most people in my family are going to like. I do want to say that it's not nearly as much of a challenge for me now that my kids are older. I have a 16-year-old daughter and a 13-year-old son, neither of whom are very picky eaters. And so I do acknowledge that that part might be a little bit easier for me now than when I had smaller children. But at the end of the day, you still want to enjoy something that you're having to do nearly every day of your life, right? And so kind of the tact that I take is that I make something that most everyone is going to like. And if they don't like it, I try to make components of the dish or the meal that they will like, or they can just have a sandwich or a bowl of cereal or something else if they really don't like it. I really don't stress about that because it's just not worth stressing about, right? Like, how many hours are you going to spend in the kitchen cooking for your family over the course of your lifetime? How many meals are you going to cook? Probably thousands, right? And I kind of liken this to anything that you do in life, whether it's a hobby or a job. At some level, you have to enjoy what you're doing or you are going to dread it. Like I mentioned before, one of the ways that I get inspiration for meals is by going through my freezer and my pantry and deciding what I want to use up. And it's fairly easy now, especially with so many recipes on the internet or even with paid apps that you can use. I really love the New York Times cooking app. I also subscribe to the America's Test Kitchen app because I know that those are tried and true recipes that are mostly always going to turn out. So like for this particular night, I decided to make some beef tips. I have a bunch of beef that I'm trying to go through in our deep freeze right now because my husband and I get a half of a cow every year from a farmer that he works with, which is great because the beef is great quality and it is much, much cheaper than you can get in the regular grocery store. And so knowing that we are going to get our other half of a cow in a few months, I'm trying to work through a lot of this meat. So what I did was I just thought, okay, how can I use up some of this really lean sirloin steak? Well, I can either make it in the sous vide and make tender steaks out of it. I could throw it on the grill. I could make a stir fry. But what I really decided to do was kind of make this homey comfort meal of beef tips with gravy. And I had some potatoes in the pantry. So I thought, what goes with that? Mashed potatoes. And then I also had a can of green beans in the pantry as well. A meal like this is very much like Midwestern comfort food, which is something that my husband grew up with and he really loves, and my kids like it too. So this one was definitely a win and everyone cleaned their plates. So with all of the back to school craziness, I have decided that us moms need a little treat for ourselves, and that is why I'm glad that FabFitFun is sponsoring today's video. I've been working with them for a while here on my channel, and even prior to that, I got their subscription boxes because their seasonal subscription boxes are customizable. reusable, meaning that you're not going to get a box full of stuff that you don't want like some other subscriptions. You actually get to pick what goes in your box and customize it to what you want and need. So I want to show you guys some of what I got in my box, but the cool thing about FabFitFun is that you get a ton of different brand name items and you get them for a fraction of the retail cost. So the value of my box this time actually came to $282. I got this Rare Beauty moisturizer, which I'm actually wearing today, and it smells very good. It's like very fresh and a bit citrusy. I needed some new moisturizer, so that's why I picked that. And then I also got this Bondi Boost heat protection spray. I feel like whenever I go to pick out my items, I can always find things that I need. And I think the other awesome thing too is that you get to try different brands that you might not normally try. And then these earrings I actually have on right now. They're these like threader earrings, which I think are super cool. And I don't even own a pair of these, but I just think they're very unique, like dainty yet very cool. Like I said, I don't own anything like it, so I was really excited to get those. And then I also got this Rare Beauty blush, which is kind of shimmery. I'm actually wearing it today. I needed a new blush actually to keep in my travel bag, so this was good. And then I also got this gorgeous cardigan that's actually valued at $98. I got it in a smaller size because Kira saw me picking out the things and she wanted it, so I'm gonna give that to her. But then I also got a pie server, which is beautiful, and I needed another one. And then this cute scalloped wooden board that I can use for charcuterie and things like that. As a FabFitFun member, you can also get access to super amazing flash sales with a bunch of top brands for up to 70% off. So the average member saves about $500 in their first season. So if you guys want to treat yourself, check out the links in the description box below. You can get 20% off the seasonal box with code JENCHAPIN, or you can also get a free gift valued over $200 with a new annual membership, and the code for that is JENCHAPINGIFT. I'm an annual member and I love it because you get first dibs at choosing products in your box. You also get earlier shipping and first access to flash sales. So choose what's right for you and treat yourself this back to school season. Once again, thank you to FabFitFun for sponsoring. I truly love their box. You can get those deals in the description box below using my links. When I was growing up, banana bars with cream cheese frosting were something that my mom never really made, but one of my aunts made delicious banana bars and she would always bring them to potlucks. My family is really big on my mom's side. So my mom has 3 brothers. And so when I was growing up, I had a bunch of cousins. My grandparents were really involved in our lives. And so holidays were always a big event where we would all pile into, a lot of times, a very tiny house. There would be folding tables set up, and it was something that I always looked forward to during my childhood, was getting to go to those big family dinners, getting to play with my cousins, and obviously eating all of the delicious food that everyone would bring. And so when I grew up, my grandma actually gave me my aunt's recipe for banana bars. I have it on a recipe card somewhere that I need to dig out. But nowadays, when I want to make banana bars, I actually use a Betty Crocker recipe. So I can link that down below and any of the other recipes that I use in this video. But the reason why I really like this particular recipe is that it makes the bars pretty thin so that they bake in the oven quickly. And then they're more like a bar, like a frosted bar or a brownie, and not a cake, right? They're not like super thick. So it's just like the perfect amount for a quick dessert after dinner. I really also love anything with cream cheese frosting, and I made an extra pan of these. So I actually doubled the recipe to take over to Adam's parents, which is also something I really like to do, is share food with my family. Chicken and noodles is also a very kind of nostalgic homey dish that I like to make when I'm not sure what else I want to make for dinner. It is in the rotation often. And when I was at Walmart a couple of weeks ago, I found these packages of the Cheesecake Factory brown bread that were on clearance for $2.75. So I threw them in the freezer and I was like, this is the perfect dinner because I basically got everything on hand. I had the noodles in the freezer as well. Now, when I was growing up, I remember my grandma would make the best chicken and noodles, but she would make homemade noodles. And I can remember sitting in her kitchen with her and rolling out noodles on her kitchen table, and she would cut them into these thin strips and then make chicken and noodles out of them. And like, obviously chicken and noodles with homemade noodles is like, you can't beat that, right? But then when I started dating Adam and I started having dinners and holidays and things with his family, his mom always used these Reams frozen noodles, and she would always bring them to holiday dinners, or she would have them for holiday dinners if we went over to her house, so like Thanksgiving and Christmas. And Adam always told me how much he loved the thicker noodles, and then my daughter Kira really started liking them as well. So this is just another dish that pretty much everyone in my family loves. Like, what's not to love about chicken and noodles and mashed potatoes? Obviously, this is like a very carb loading meal, but I do like to have, if I have time, make mashed potatoes with the chicken and noodles. I did make instant mashed potatoes on this night, which is totally fine. I give you permission to do that. It's like, you don't have to make mashed potatoes from scratch on a Tuesday, but this is a dish that I guarantee you everyone in your family will love. Another way that I have really been kind of enjoying cooking is by challenging myself with either a little bit more difficult recipe or a new recipe at least once a week. One thing I really try not to do is do too many complex or new recipes throughout the week, because if you think about the end goal is to like get dinner on the table for your family, and you don't always want to do something complicated, especially after you get off of work. And I will say that making crab rangoons from scratch is a little bit fussy and takes a little bit more time, but the end result is delicious. So I have used several times now the crab rangoon recipe from New York Times, and I definitely recommend it. The filling is really delicious. It actually uses a little bit of lemon zest, which sounds kind of odd, but once you combine everything together, it kind of cuts that richness of the cream cheese in the filling. One of the keys to making crab rangoon, or really any dumpling like this that you're going to fry, is that you do not want to overfill them. And I realize the temptation can be very big to overfill them, but if you do that, they're going to bust apart in the frying oil, and you definitely don't want that because it's going to splatter everywhere and make a mess. My family also loves stir fry dishes. And so I had some chicken in the freezer that I thawed out, and I thought, what kind of like a chicken stir fry can I make? So again, I went to the New York Times cooking app and started searching through some of the more top rated recipes. And this recipe for Hunan chicken came up as really top rated. Like, everyone had good things to say about it. And so I thought, well, I'm going to make this. I have to be honest, this night of cooking was pretty intense, like frying, making and frying homemade crab rangoons, and then making a stir fry from scratch, and all of that stuff is like definitely not for the weak, but my kids love crab rangoon. And so anytime I make them, they're always like, yes, this is so good. I did end up with a little bit of extra filling, so I have that in the fridge in case I want to make some more. But kind of how I handled this was I made the crab rangoon prior to making the stir fry, and then we were able to kind of have that as our appetizer while I finished the actual stir fry recipe. One of the things that's going to make your life a lot easier when you're making stir fries like this is to have everything prepped ahead of time. So have your meat prepped, have all of your veggies chopped, your garlic, your ginger, and then mix up your stir fry sauce as well. Get your rice, started cooking in the rice cooker, and then basically all you kind of have to do is just dump everything into a pan. So you definitely want to have like all of your ingredients in place to make this go successfully. I did have to substitute a few things in this recipe because living in the Midwest, sometimes it is hard to find some of these East Asian ingredients. Now, you can find a lot of these things online. And so if I am planning ahead of time, then I am able to order those items from Amazon. But Adam said this is the best chicken stir fry that I have ever made. And I have to say the flavors in this were so good. There's also the addition of some red pepper flake in there, so it's a little bit spicy. I would definitely make this again. And it was just a good dish for a weeknight. Now, another thing that I like to do is make homemade cookies, because I always have at least most of the ingredients on hand, pretty much all of the ingredients on hand to make homemade cookies. And I had this huge container of oatmeal in my pantry, and we don't eat a lot of oatmeal. I mostly just use it in recipes. And so I thought, how am I going to use this up? And so I looked on the back of the container, and these are just like oats from Walmart, and there was an oatmeal chocolate chip cookie recipe on the back of there, and I thought, well, I haven't made those in a while, so let's make those. This made a huge batch of cookies. Earlier this year, I actually went to Costco and stocked up on a ton of baking items, so I have plenty of flour and sugar and brown sugar and chocolate chips and basically everything that I need in my pantry to make cookies. Another thing I definitely recommend is a cookie scoop. If you make cookies at home, even ever, totally recommend you grab one of these. They're pretty inexpensive. You can get it from Amazon or Walmart or wherever you can find cooking supplies, but it's just so quick and easy to portion the cookies out evenly, and it just makes the process so much easier. One of the things that I would say about this particular cookie recipe is that I probably should have taken them out of the oven a little bit sooner because they do kind of crisp up a little bit as they cool. One of the main ways that I get inspiration for cooking at home is from recipes that we have when we go out to eat. And that is where this Croque Madame came from. So Adam and I have had this tradition this summer of going to the farmer's market on Saturday mornings, and then a lot of times we'll go out for breakfast or brunch afterwards. And we have this hotel in town that has pretty good breakfast, and also their Bloody Marys are delicious. And so a lot of times we'll go down there because it's also not far from where the farmer's market is, and they have a Croque Madame on the menu, and I haven't had one of those in a long time. And so the last time we went there, I ordered one and it was delicious, and I thought, this can't be that hard. I can make this at home. Have I ever made a Croque Madame at home? No, but I kind of knew the principle of it. Basically, it's like a toasted ham and cheese sandwich that you make in the oven, and then you finish it off with a bechamel sauce that has Gruyere and Parmesan in it. So it's definitely very rich. Like if you eat this for breakfast or brunch, you're probably not going to be hungry again until dinner. But one of the things that I love to do is so my husband, Adam, his favorite meal of the day is breakfast. And so a lot of times on the weekends, or if we have a day off, one of my favorite things to do is just make different things for breakfast that I know he's going to like. I would say that cooking for my family and the joy and happiness I get in doing that is definitely one of the ways that I show my family love. It's just having good food to eat, right? And so we kind of talked about it the night before, and I was like, do you want to try this? And he's like, yeah, I've never had it before. And he loves anything with a runny egg. So I knew he would love this. I'm glad that I made this. It was so good. It was a little bit involved, but the good thing about recipes is once you try a recipe once, even if it's a little bit intimidating and chaotic the first time you make it, now you know how to make it, right? And so the next time I make this, it's going to be a lot easier, but either way, it was freaking delicious. Tonight we're making beef birria tacos because my daughter has been requesting them for a week now, and I told her I'd make them. So I just have a chuck roast here that I cut into large chunks. I'm going to brown this in a skillet with some oil before I add it to the slow cooker. So you can see my beef has some nice color on it. I added it to my slow cooker, and then I also added some salt, beef bouillon powder, black pepper, ground cloves, ground cinnamon, some bay leaves, and some dried thyme. I chopped up a small onion, so we're going to go ahead and add that. In this blender cup, I have some chilies that I soaked in boiling water. So I have 3 guajillo chilies, 1 ancho chili, 1 pasilla chili, and all you do is just take the seeds out of these, rinse them off, put them in a pot with water, bring them to a boil, and then just turn the heat off and let it sit in the hot water for 30 minutes. I've got 4 cloves of garlic I'm going to add to there. And then in here also, I've got 1 cup of water, 1 chipotle pepper in adobo sauce, and then a cup of water. So we're just going to blend this up and then add the chili mixture to the slow cooker. Add our chili mixture, some water. I'm just using the blender cup so I can get every last bit the chili. So I just want to make sure that everything is pretty well combined, and then we'll put the lid on this, put it on high, and this will cook for 4 to 6 hours or until it's super duper tender. Whenever anyone asks me what my favorite type of cuisine is, I always say Mexican food. I'm not kidding you guys when I say I could eat Mexican dishes for breakfast, lunch, and dinner every single day and never get never get tired of it. Sometimes I feel like my family is like, oh my gosh, we're having tacos again. Actually, no, tacos is something that everyone loves and no one complains about. So that's definitely a staple on the dinner rotation. But obviously, this recipe is a little bit more involved in terms of when you go to assemble it, right? Like the whole process is very hands off, especially if you cook the beef in the slow cooker, which is obviously what I did. It doesn't actually take a lot of time to like fry the tacos, but you do have to kind of like separate out the fat, and there is a little bit of technique involved in it. One thing I would say is that I do encourage you to do yellow corn tortillas instead of white, because I used white corn tortillas and they're a little bit more like tender and they kind of fell apart when I tried to dip them in the fat and the broth. But these are still delicious, right? Like who doesn't love a smashed beef taco with cheese, and then you garnish it with onion and cilantro, you dip it in that broth. And the best part is that you get extra beef that then you can use for birria ramen, which is delicious. So I hope this gave you some ideas of how to fall in love with cooking again for your own family. And if you like this video, you can click on this next one right here and you'll love this one too.